What I've talked about here in the how to do these stitches for the hemming is a very basic part of hemming. It's the most important part. But also, in order to hem things yourself, such as if you need a cuff hemmed up on a pair of pants, or if you're making a skirt or something along that line and it just needs hemmed a little bit, you need to measure it and then do the hemming stitches, and those are the two basic steps. It's much easier if you have somebody to help you measure the hem, especially for skirts, because it's just obnoxious. They also make tools that stand on the floor and are upright and then have a piece of chalk that come out, and you stand in one spot and twirl in a circle, and in theory the chalk will mark the fabric. I've never personally used one at all, so I don't know how well they work. But if you don't have anybody to help you, you can always put on your pair of pants or whatever and just on the hem either roll them up so that they're the proper length, or if you can, roll the cuff to the inside like so until they're the proper length. And then once you get them to the length that you want them, go ahead and just take a piece of the tailor's chalk and run it along that edge so it will mark where the fold needs to be. And then that's where your hemming seam is going to be. And you just roll them underneath to that point and do the hemming stitch on the inside. And that's how you measure to hem pants. Again, measuring to hem skirts, it's much easier if you have somebody else to help you. That way they can actually fold it up and pin it in place, and you can look and make sure that everything is flat and even the way that you want it. Or you can use a mirror and a tape measure and measure down from the hem every inch or so and pin it in place at the same length, and then put it on to make sure that everything is even. Is the easiest way that I figure out how to mark skirts for hemming. Doing this will save you an awful lot in tailoring bills for things like suits, and also works for cuffs on jackets and shirts, and also the bottom hem, the waistband of jackets as well. Right, now that we've got the edges pressed into place, we're going to go ahead and start doing the hemming. There are a couple of ways to do hemming. The first one I'm going to show you is basically a modified whip stitch. And what you do is, I embraced the pink for this project using pink thread on the pink fabric. I've gone ahead and threaded the needle so both loose ends are through, and it's got a loop at the end. So you pull it through the fabric, and when that loop comes up, you pass the needle through the loop so that it tacks down. Now, instead of doing a full whip stitch where you gather up a whole bunch of fabric like so, what you're going to do instead is you're going to try to get as close to the edge of the fabric here as you can, and only pick up one or two threads, just a tiny bit. So that much of the needle shows through. It's very small. It takes a lot of practice to be able to do it well. So a lot of people either don't learn how to do hemming. I was interrupted by having to do adult things. So during the interruption, I did some hemming along the side seam. You can see the stitches are fairly even, and this is what it looks like on the right side. They're just little pinpricks that you can see going down there, and they're fairly close together. And this is done by that overcast technique. And as I was saying, a lot of people never learn how to hem clothing because it does take such small stitches, and a lot of people just don't like doing it, don't have the patience for it. As an alternative, you can do a straight stitch just along the hem as well. It doesn't hold up quite as well and it's more visible. Or you can do a back stitch as long as you're careful and you're working from the right side and doing the back stitch and you're careful to catch the hem on the back side. I'm just going to do a few more of the whip stitch style to keep demonstrating. Again, it's just a couple of little threads and then you catch the folded over part. And I tend to hem in what's known as a Victorian fashion because the needle is coming towards me. And that's something that it's a very, very subtle difference, but it's something that really wasn't seen until the middle to late part of the Victorian era. I'm going to continue this to the corner of the apron here, and then I'm going to do a different type of hem stitch. It's the invisible hem stitch or the pinprick stitch down along the bottom half or the bottom portion, and then I'm going to do the whip stitch version up the other side. The pinprick is worked in a fairly similar fashion as to the whip stitch hemming. What you do is you pick up just a couple of threads underneath like you did with the whip stitch, like so. Then you insert the needle, there it goes, there's the focus. Insert the needle into the folded over part and then run it along the inside of the fold. And with me and my measurement system, about the width of a thumbnail, and pop it back out and pull. Once you've done this a few times, you should be able to pick up those threads and then, without having to pull the needle all the way through, go in underneath the fabric. That one's a little wide. Like so. And again, pick in run at your measure. Not wide enough. Run at your measure and pull it through. As you can see, you can't, if you look closely, you can see where the stitches are on the back side. If you flip it over, and this is the right side, focus, there it is. You can see the stitches where we did the overcast. And there's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. They're barely visible. There, right there, and right there. This is the type of hemming that's normally done on very dressy suits, jackets, dresses, things very high class and couture. I'm going to go ahead and do that all along the bottom hem and then go back up the other side with the whip stitch or overcast stitch for the hemming on the other side.